Hey, this is Cowboy Jeff, and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be building some floating shelves. I get a lot of questions about that from all over the world. People are asking, hey, how do you make those beautiful floating shelves that you do by hand? And so in this tutorial today, I'm going to show you how to put together a basic 3-foot floating shelf. You'll notice that we got 3 pieces here that actually make up the floating shelf, in addition to 2 side pieces that I'm going to show you how we're going to put in next. You're going to need an 18 gauge nail gun, with 1.5 inch or 1.25 inch nails. Now this is going to be a very simple design. What I've done here is I've ripped down a stock of 3/4 inch plywood. As you can see that, 3/4 inch plywood, and it measures 5 inches across. Depending on how deep you want the shelf to be, you might want to make this larger. Some folks request shelves that are 8 inches or 10 inches. But it's also just based on whatever size that, whatever you're planning on putting on it actually is. For example, if I were going to put, say, a plate or something like that on top of this, I might make it 10 inches. In this case, a standard shelf is 5 inches deep, floating shelf. So I take the 5-inch piece, and you'll notice here that I have a solid piece of pine. Notice how the pine doesn't have a banding on the side of it. We're going to use this as the face of the shelf, versus having this band on the plywood showing. We're going to have this pine piece facing out. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the piece, the shelving, the 5-inch piece, we're going to put it down on its face, let it stand, and we're going to line up the edges of the shelf like this. What I'm trying to do right here is I'm trying to make sure that this line, this seam between this plywood piece and the outside solid wood piece are absolutely lined up. They're lined up on this side of the piece and lined up on the top piece as well. And then I take my 18 gauge nail and fire it right through the center of that board. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make my way, work my way on down the piece. Now you want to be very careful that you're shooting very straight, okay? Because you don't want the nail to come out through the top or through the inside of the box. You also want to make sure that you exercise caution. Don't put your finger in front of the nail gun. If it comes out crooked, the nail comes out crooked, it could hit you in the finger. So I'm working my way nice and steady, nice and even, all the way down the shelf. Okay, so now what I've actually put together is the top part of the shelf and the faceplate. Now I'm going to take my second part of the shelf, and you might want to look at this and determine which side of the face you actually want to use. Like in this particular example, I love the knots here on this wood on the outside of this veneer. That's very pretty, but we also have a very clean side to it as well. I think today I'm feeling a little knotty, so I'm going to put the knots on the outside of it. So what I do is I turn my board around, do the same thing I did on the opposite side, line it up real nice and straight. Now the thing you got to remember here again is you want to make sure this seam right here is nice and smooth and they're nice and even, okay? And now, work my way on down the board. And it's also a good idea that you watch the seam. Watch the seam as you're coming down, okay? Because you don't want it sticking out too far. You want it nice and even as you're moving down. There we go. Notice what I'm doing with my finger back here in the back is I'm actually pushing this part of the board in and out, because there's a natural bend to the wood. Even plywood has a natural bend to it. So you want to make sure that you're going nice and straight and you're compensating for the wood wanting to turn by adjusting it from the back end. Notice I'm firing my nails nice and smooth. I got me another one here. Now I'm putting one right down here on the center. Now, notice that it has little pock marks in the top of it where the nail has penetrated. You can go back and actually fill that in with a clay or a putty if you want to. But since we're going to be using a dark stain on this, we're not even going to worry about that, because it's going to add that much more authenticity to the piece by giving it that kind of hand-hammered, homemade look, which is what we're really going for. So I'm not even going to fill that in, because the dark walnut stain that we're going to use on this is actually going to fall down into these holes and actually cover up a lot of that and give it a lot of extra character. Now, the plugs that actually plug into the side of the shelf are going to go here. These plugs, if you're using a 5-inch faceplate, are going to be 5 inches long. Okay, so this is roughly 5 inches long. But you're trying to determine the distance between here and here. I've already pre-cut these pieces. But what you would want to do is you would want to set your table saw to 2 inches heavy. That means 2 inches and a tick on your tape measure, and you want to run these through the saw, your table saw. And then you want to cut them down to 5 inches. Or, coincidentally, the length of this is actually the same length as this top. So if your top is 5 inches deep, then the plug is 5 inches deep. Conversely, if your top is 8 inches deep, the plug should be 8 inches deep and 2 inches heavy. Okay, so I'm going to put my plug right into the side. I think I'll turn it over to the already pre-stained side of it. This is just actually some scrap wood that I found in the shop, and decided I wanted to make this tutorial for not only you guys but also for my team here at the shop to show them how to do it. So I just kind of pull that plywood together, that scrap wood together. And then what I want to do is I'm putting a little tension on my hand right here. I'm actually clamping this piece using the force of my hand in order to mount that plug in the side. I put 4 nails in there, 4 18 gauge nails. 18 gauge nails tend to work the best. 16 gauge leaves a pretty big hole. And 4. There we go. So now I have my plug in that side. Now I'm going to turn around and we'll do the very same thing with the opposite side. Now here again, I'm going to clamp it with my left hand. I'm holding tension on this so it doesn't fall out. And I'm looking to make sure that the plug in the side here is nice and even all the way around, because we want the side of the shelf to look very smooth and seamless as possible, okay? So, here we go again. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And there you have it. You have yourself a floating shelf. Now, in order to mount this on the wall, we're going to use a bracket that we actually created out of a scrap piece of wood. So I'm going to walk back here to the shop just a little bit and see if I can find a piece. So give me just a second. And it just so happens I have one right here, okay? Notice that this 3 1/4 inch piece is roughly the depth of the back. So in this case, since the depth is 2 inches heavy, we want to make sure that the bracket that's going to mount it on the wall is at least smaller than that. So I would wager that this is probably about 1 3/4 inches, okay? And you simply take the bracket and you want to cut it to 1 foot less than the size of the shelf. So if you have a 3-foot shelf that you're making, your bracket should be cut to 2 feet. Pardon me, 2 feet. So I'm going to go into the back in just a second. I'm going to cut that down to 2 feet. Give me just a second. Be right back. Okay, I'm back with my bracket. As you can see, that took a lot of effort, right? And you simply, if you want to mount this on the wall, all you simply have to do is take the 3 1/4 inch piece that's 2 feet long, mount it on the wall. You may want to have a stud finder. Find you a stud along the wall. You drive a pilot nail in the center here to balance it. You probably need a level. You want to level this first on the wall. And then you want to secure it with maybe 2 or 3 screws. And what happens next is simply the shelf goes over the bracket on the wall, like so, and that's what holds it on the wall. Now you might ask yourself, well, how do I keep it from falling off the wall? Is it just going to hang on the bracket? Well, no. you're going to take a pilot screw and you put a screw from the top down into the bracket on the wall. All you need is probably one or two, okay? And that's going to hold it securely on the wall. You can probably hold anywhere between 25 and 35 pounds securely on the wall. These make a great addition to any room, to any bar area, home decor area, whatever. Of course, you can finish this off in any type of stain that you want. We're going to do dark walnut. You may even want to take some clay or putty and cover up some of the seams and the holes in this. And then it doesn't hurt to do a light sanding once you're done with the product too, right before you stain it, to give it that really nice professional look. All right? So that's how you put together a floating shelf. Of course, you can make these in 2 foot, 3 foot, 4 foot, 5 foot, 6 foot, whatever your imagination leads you to, or however much weight you have. But that's the basic mechanics of putting together a floating shelf. You know, if you're looking for some rustic product in your house, a barn door, a bar, wet bar, what have you, you can't do any better than calling us folks over at Cowboy Builds. www.cowboybuilds.com. Don't forget to like and to subscribe to our channel, because we got a whole lot more content coming at you, and we're trying to get a little better at putting these videos out on a regular basis as well. But it's been great talking with you. This has been Cowboy Jeff at Cowboy Builds, because we do rustic right.